A woman, Sarah, sits up in bed, eyes fixed on the gently swaying curtains in her bedroom. She glances at her husband, Mark, who is fast asleep. The next morning, Sarah stands in the living room, staring at the curtains. She shakes her head and walks away, trying to dismiss her unease. Sarah installs a hidden camera on the bookshelf, adjusting its angle to face the curtains. She glances around nervously before leaving the room. Night falls, and Sarah lies in bed, unable to sleep. She keeps glancing at the curtains, waiting for any sign of movement. The curtains sway gently, and Sarah's eyes widen. She grips the edge of the bed, her heart pounding. The next morning, Sarah retrieves the hidden camera and connects it to her laptop. She watches the footage with growing unease. On the screen, a figure emerges from behind the curtains, moving stealthily. Sarah's hand flies to her mouth in shock. Sarah rewinds the footage and watches again, this time noticing the figure entering through a hidden crawl space behind the curtains. Sarah confronts Mark, showing him the footage. Mark looks shocked and confused, but he insists it's just a prank. Determined to uncover the truth, Sarah visits the local library to research the history of their house. Sarah discovers an old newspaper article about a burglary that occurred in their neighborhood years ago. The culprit was never caught. Sarah returns home and examines the crawl space behind the curtains. She finds a dusty old suitcase hidden inside. Sarah opens the suitcase, revealing stacks of cash, old jewelry, and a collection of documents. Sarah examines the documents and realizes they belong to her husband, Mark. Her face turns pale with realization. Sarah confronts Mark again, this time with the evidence. Mark's demeanor changes, and he becomes defensive. Mark confesses that he has been hiding the stolen goods for years, planning to use them for an insurance scam. Sarah is horrified and decides to leave the house. She packs a bag and heads to her sister's place. Mark follows Sarah, trying to convince her to stay. Sarah refuses, and they argue heatedly. Sarah's sister, Emily, opens the door and takes Sarah inside, offering her a safe place to stay. Sarah and Emily discuss the situation, and Emily suggests going to the police with the evidence. Sarah hesitates, torn between her love for Mark and her sense of justice. Sarah decides to visit a lawyer to understand her options. The lawyer advises her to gather more evidence and proceed with caution. Sarah returns to her house when Mark is away and installs more hidden cameras throughout the house. Sarah reviews the new footage and finds evidence of Mark meeting with a shady-looking man in their living room. Sarah follows Mark one evening and discovers him making a deal with the man in a secluded parking lot. Sarah takes photos of the meeting and returns to her lawyer with the new evidence. The lawyer advises Sarah to go to the police immediately. Sarah agrees, feeling more determined than ever. Sarah meets with a detective and hands over all the evidence. The detective promises to investigate the case thoroughly. Mark returns home and finds Sarah packing her bags again. He confronts her, and they have a tense standoff. The police arrive at the house and arrest Mark. Sarah watches with a mix of relief and sadness. Sarah moves in with Emily temporarily, trying to rebuild her life and come to terms with the betrayal. Months pass, and Sarah receives updates from the detective. Mark's trial is approaching, and the evidence against him is strong. Sarah attends Mark's trial, sitting in the courtroom with Emily by her side. The prosecution presents a compelling case, and Mark's defense crumbles under the weight of the evidence. Mark is found guilty of multiple charges, including insurance fraud and conspiracy. Sarah feels a sense of closure as the verdict is read. She knows she can finally move on with her life. Sarah returns home and begins the process of selling the house, determined to leave the past behind. Sarah starts a new job and reconnects with old friends, finding solace in their support. Sarah decides to take a trip to clear her mind. She books a flight to a peaceful beach destination. Sarah stands on the beach, watching the sunset. She feels a sense of peace and hope for the future. Sarah returns from her trip, feeling rejuvenated and ready to start a new chapter in her life. Sarah meets a new neighbor, a kind and supportive single father named John. They strike up a friendship. Sarah and John spend time together, gradually growing closer and finding comfort in each other's company. Sarah and John decide to start a small business together, combining their skills and passions. The business thrives, and Sarah feels a sense of accomplishment and happiness she hasn't felt in years. Sarah and John celebrate their success with a small party surrounded by friends and family. As the party winds down, Sarah and John share a quiet moment, realizing how far they've come. Sarah looks out the window and sees the curtains swaying gently in the breeze. This time, she smiles, knowing she's finally at peace.